Hi, this is Jack Downs. I'm going to be running you through the background images exercise. I can't be in class today. Um, just a quick look at the schedule, first of all. And by the way, if you're viewing this sometime other than spring semester 2024, then this schedule will not be valid. But for those of you for whom this video is being made right now, yes, background images. I'm out of town. I can't be there. I will be available via email and potentially maybe phone and Zoom. We'll see at different times, maybe over the next couple of days. But you're going to need to do this exercise in the classroom or a lab where you have access to Photoshop and Notepad++, and ideally on the same computer. You got some stuff to download too. You're supposed to be working on resume 5 at this point. We read chapter 13, yes. And also, because there's so much in 13, for next class, you should be starting to read chapter 14. There's a quiz on Monday on color. I will include that review of that quiz in a future video if I'm not in class on Friday when I would be going over it. A little different for me to have a quiz on Monday, but it's a real you can imagine there's a lot of stuff in color. All how color works, different types of color, be able to write different color codes and so on, plus all the selector stuff and everything else that's in color and external style sheets and so on. And then you can look ahead again to Friday if you wish and look at the schedule yourself regularly and keep up with it. Okay, so you should have at this point either received in class or you can go download this exercise. It's actually a multi-page thing and includes possibility of doing a bunch of extra credit if you choose to also. But remember, never do extra credit unless you're up to speed, up to date on everything else. So it suggests you make a root folder, yes, and I would call it something like background in your name. You could have a project folder also. And then inside there, you're going to actually make a copy of your corrected color1 file. The color1 file. That HTML document, go copy that HTML and go paste it in here and call it background1. And then your last name. So if you need to pause and do that, go ahead and do that. Otherwise, you need to go download one file, bullseye.png. If you go to the download area, you will see, oops, here it is. This is it's the same thing if you're downloading from Brightspace, except slightly more awkward, of course. But this is the linked Google Drive, which is available for you also. There's four documents there. You could download them all if you're going to be doing extra credit and so on. But the only one you really need for this exercise is called bullseye.png. So, of course, you put that in the root folder with your background1 renamed copy of your color1. You can follow the instructions if you want, or just follow along with me. This exercise is going to be extra credit or graded as part of the next quiz. And it's really just a play along with me exercise. So let's go ahead and get started. It's pretty basic too. And you're going to need to do some pausing and typing as we go. I'm going to view this file and it'll be very familiar to you. It's the same old color1, just as usual. It might look slightly different than yours. The text might be slightly different in places, but it's really the same file with the same CSS. At this point, you should have your CSS done and corrected. You have to have color1 to do this exercise. Okay, but you don't have all this other garbage in yours, but that's okay. I have it myself. So we're going to do the background image. And this is how we do it. I'm going to copy this, and I'm going to go paste it someplace. I'm making a little space in here. I'm, of course, in my, whoops, where am I? I'm in my body declaration. And that is how we apply a background image. Background images, unlike other images, regular images we give for informational purposes, we have captions and stuff, background images are part of design and presentation. Therefore, they're done as part of CSS, typically. And so we need a way to attach the image to the document, and this is how we do it. Background image, like background color, looks very similar the way it's created, but this is a URL, which is different. It's URL, and then a parentheses, and then the name of the image. And if there was a path to get to it, you'd have the path there also. So that's how we apply it. And what happens when we do this? Well, that image is now going to become a background image. And let's see what this looks like. And there it is. The image that we're using uses opacity. So it uses a partially transparent white, and it's all these circles. And we'll see more about making something like that yourself a little later in the exercise. So what happened? Well, there's only one of these, actually, but the natural behavior is that it tiles. It just keeps on running and filling up everything. Where is the first one applied? It's applied in the superhome position over here. So honestly, if you have a background image that you want this to happen to, maybe this would be fine. Maybe just do this and stop there. But you have a lot more control if you wish. Or maybe you just want to make it a single image or so on. Don't want it to tile. We'll go over that in a minute. Do notice that what you have to be careful about with background images is they can become distracting. So please consider whether you really want to do a background image, and we'll get that when we get to patterns and so on. That's even more the case. But maybe you do, and I think something like this, the subtle opacity-based one, maybe is maybe a good idea. Maybe that works pretty well and isn't that distracting. And see, when I scroll, it scrolls with me, right? Let's continue. What if I have it right here to remind myself what I'm supposed to be doing? What if I did not want it to tile? In background images, we call tiling repeating. Oh, by the way, this was supposed to have a semicolon, wasn't it? Oh my, I forgot the semicolon. And this one does have a semicolon. So again, we've added these two commands now. Background hyphen repeat, no repeat. Okay, let's view that. Now it's just one, and it's over here in what we'll call the superhome position. Then when we tell it not to repeat, there's just one. Okay, that's interesting. Maybe we don't want it there though, right? Well, where can we put it? Well, we could tell it before we change the position of it, we could tell it to repeat in a different way. Okay, so we said no repeat, but what if I said, actually, I'm going to say repeat X. Can you guess what happens with this? From its position, it's going to repeat only on the X-axis. And of course, and you should be playing along with me and trying this whole thing as we go, because we will end up at a state where you will be done. What if we said repeat Y? You can guess what happens, right? Not yellow, Y. And it repeats on the Y-axis. And this would be more important if you're doing the extra credit exercises to want a piece of small background image to just go in a line, that sort of thing. Okay, let's continue along. What else can we do? Well, we could tell it to, again to not repeat. We'll say that, okay? Background repeat, we'll say not repeat. We'll replace the repeat Y with it. And we're going to tell it, now normally it would be in that superhome position, but we're going to tell it background position. So this is yet another code we have. This is our third one. We have background image, background repeat, background position. Can you guess what happens with this? And it is centered. It's centered on the entire page, which might not be what you want. And because we just use one position, we use center, just one word, that applies to X and Y. It's centered on X and Y on the entire page. Maybe what we want instead is, or maybe what you would want when you have a single image, you want to control exactly where it goes, right? Maybe you want to, I'm going to, for some reason I put 100 in here, but I'm actually going to do 200 because I like that better. Try a background position, center, and 200. When there's two positions, center and number, for instance, and actually you can have more than that, but it's usually just two. Center is left, right, and 200 means 200 down from the top. So let's save that. There it is. It's still there, centered like that. Okay, and now let's continue along and say, what if it isn't no repeat, but if it is repeat? Which would be the same thing as not having background repeat at all, because repeat is the default, right? Now it looks, is this exactly like it was in the very beginning? No, there's the very beginning, and this is what it is now. What's the difference? Well, this first one right here, which is 200 down from the top and centered, it is now the first one, and all the rest of them repeat all around it. Maybe you don't want just a single thing. If you do, well, you don't do repeat. Maybe you just want it to work out where the tiling happens. And are we done? Not quite. There's just one more thing. There's more to learn about background images if you wish. Not a whole lot more, really. But I think we could do a fixed background attachment is another common code to use. So let's do that. So what does this do? Well, we'll see the difference here, and I'll view it, run. So before, this is where we were before, we have the images, and they're all there based on that position. Now that hasn't changed, except now when we scroll, the background does not move. The background stays still, which might be cool or it might not be. So there's a whole bunch of background stuff that you can do. So you should save this document, and then you should make a copy of this document and call it, let's call it background 2 in your name, and put it in the same folder. So you want to pause while you do that, because we're going to do something else with that one. And then you want to open up Photoshop. So we're going to continue from there in just a moment. So here we go in Photoshop. And the idea is we're going to make one of those opacity-based images, not unlike that bullseye one. So I can show you how to do it. And you could make any kind of images to use as background image, of course. And you could apply opacity to other things other than white, though. I'll be making a white one. You could do something different, a different color if you want. It would have to go along with the color involved, and if you really did it for real. But so how do you start this? Well, I'm in Photoshop now, and every version of Photoshop is slightly different, but the general idea should still apply, and all the commands and so on should work out for you. You know, File, New. Now, I did this before, so I'm already set to 400 and 400. That's like the size of the bullseye. Of course, you'd have to know what size you want, but if you're going to do something like that, you would do those kind of numbers. I'm going to call mine Jack. You call yours what you want. And I'm going to, 72 is correct, so make sure it's in pixels. 72 pixels per inch is correct. RGB color is fine. The background you definitely want is transparent. And you can ignore all that stuff and just say, okay. I'm going to go Control Plus to make that a little bigger so you can see better. And I'm going to go grab the text tool. Now, you could change some of the stuff after you get going. But I'm going to say that had been stuck at 70, some strange number, but you want to bring up the size to at least moderately big size. And you want to change this color to, it's probably a black or something like that, right? You want to change it to white, or practically white, which is that is. Okay, so I'm going to change that foreground color to white. See my foreground color there, and I selected it there. As my type color is white. Unless you wanted some other color. You have to choose a font. Now, I'm going to suggest that we're going to do is we're going to type a single capital or large letter or symbol letter. Like what? Like an exclamation mark or a dollar sign, or I'm going to use an ampersand. And choose a font that is interesting to you. I'm choosing something called, what am I choosing? I don't remember what I'm choosing. I'm going to find something that's very kind of curly. This courgette might be a good example. I'm going to, how about Edwardian? Yeah, Edwardian. Okay, but you choose what you want. I want it to be something distinctive. And I'm going to click in here, and I'm going to type that my ampersand, which is there. Good. Now, this is going to be very hard for you to see in the video probably. It's just a weird shape. Okay, good. I'm going to select that guy and make him like really big, like 400 points. Is that too big? It might be too big. Actually, it's not. That, can you imagine? That is like a letter. That's weird, isn't it? Wow. So I'm going to take that thing. I made it reasonably big. Okay, but I want to make sure it's not touching the edges. And I'm going to stretch it even bigger. So once you get it reasonably big, now you want to go under Edit and choose Free Transform, which turns it's no longer type now. Now it's like sort of like an image that can be just stretched. I'm going to stretch this close to the edge there, sort of close to the edge. And then I'm going to stretch it down here too. But the problem is it won't fit on the screen quite, so I have to make it go up and then stretch it bigger and then go look at it and see, was that, nah, I want to make it even a little bit more, and so on. And I want it to have it kind of fill the block. This is a square block, so I'm really torturing this letter. Okay, so something like that, let's say. I want a little gap either side. You don't have to have a little gap. Whatever you want to do. Okay, and if I double click in there, it'll accept the free transform. Now, with that selected still, I'm going to go to opacity in my layers panel over here. My panels are all kind of screwed up right now, but anyway, my layers panel, I'm going to go opacity and go to set it about 20%, which is going to make it look kind of like it disappears, really. And now I'm all set. I did it. So I'm going to go File. I'm going to Save As. And I'm going to save it as a PNG because this is multiple levels of transparency. So we need a PNG. And I'll leave the name Jack, but I got to put it in the right place. Well, where is it? It's there. 317 Background. And there. Okay, good. Okay. And I'll go ahead and say, yes, save. Okay. So I can leave that up or not, or save it, or change it or not, doesn't matter. I'm going to go back to my, back here. Now, I'm imagining that I'm actually in now the copied. Now, remember, you did one of these, which used the bullseye. Now you made a copy of it, File Save As, and you called it Background 2 in your name. Now, we'll imagine that's what I'm doing here. But instead of doing that one, I'm going to do another. I'm going to choose, I'm going to change it. Instead of being the bullseye, I'm going to change it to what I called mine, which is different from what you called yours. I'm going to save that, and we're going to review it. And now there it is. I can leave this as a fixed thing or not, whatever. So I made another pattern, which is sitting there underneath things, which maybe you like, maybe you don't. Okay, so having said all that, now, if you would like to continue, of course, I'll save this, and now take that. Now you have a root folder that has two images in it, bullseye, and then the new one that you just made, and you'll have two different, nearly identical HTML documents. One uses the bullseye, and one uses the image you just made. You zip that root folder up, and you submit that for the assignment. Good. And then, if you want extra credit, starting over again, you're going to use your color one again, but now make different versions of a background 3, 4, and 5. Read this extra credit on the assignment, which is like right there. Okay, right? Extra credit explains that you're going to complete exercises 13.3, 4, and 7 out of the textbook, and the pages are listed there. They use some of those other images, okay? And you're going to do those, you have to have more files, background 3, 4, and 5, more copies of color 1. And you do something, you have more images to use and download, make a new root folder, call it extra credit, background or something, back extra, your name or something, and do that all up. Good. Zip it and put it in the extra credit folder. Good. Want to do even more extra credit? Okay. For full extra credit as above, make sure a new root folder, sure, yes, and copy 2 more versions of color 1, 6, and 7. No images are needed. Go to the CSS gradient pattern gallery, use a pattern, and make your own file using the online color generator again. Well, let me show you a little bit about that. Okay, for extra credit 2, again, you're going to have 2 more copies of color 1, and again, you're going to name them appropriately. Again, they'll be in a root folder. This time, there need to be no images in there. You're just going to be working with the HTML documents. And you're going to use either a pattern or a gradient as your background. Let me show you, if you go to, in Brightspace, as I am, you go to the what is it called? Other class resources and links, okay? And then there's something called CSS pattern gradients. So let's go to the first one, the gradient pattern. These are all kinds of patterns, as you can see. And these were ones other people created. So let me click on one of them. Let's say lined paper. Let's say I wanted to use that one. I'm going to select all the text in here, in the code. And you can see it's background color, background image. The image, though, is not an image. as such. It's actually a description of a gradient. It's a description of a gradient in a pattern. So what would I do? So I'm going to go to my Notepad++. Here I am. And now I'm going to remove all this stuff in the body. Background color right through. And this time I'm removing the background color, right? I'm going to paste this in because it has its own background color and image and stuff, right? So that, all this stuff is the gradient. It's not an image really, it's just a description of pattern. Let me just run it and see what it looks like. So now I've got like a lined paper background. That's pretty neat. In fact, you could go into the code and make some tweaks and change colors and stuff like that if you want to make the lines red or something else. So that would be one. And then of course you go on and do a new one, do another one with another copy of color 1. Okay, like what else would you do? Well, I want you to do, these are like pre-made ones that people worked on and made and figured out. I want you to kind of make your own a little bit, sort of, make it customize it a little bit more yourself. So if we go back to the patterns and gradients, I want to use one of these other two tools, the color gradient generator or hero patterns, or search online and find another one of your own. There's probably lots of other ones. These have been around for a little while. A online color generator or color gradient generator or pattern generator. This one you could start by selecting a pre-made pattern, then you could change the color at one end of it, for instance, to something else ugly like that, maybe. I don't know. That's a vertical pattern. And then I could grab all the stuff in here. I just click on copy and I could go paste that in over there. Okay, good, and use that instead. That could be an example of the second one. Or on the other hand, I could go to, let's go back again, to this one called hero patterns. And here I'm setting colors again, foreground, background, setting opacity too. And I could use one of these patterns, but yet apply my own colors and opacity and so on. So you can essentially make your own with that, and then throw that in there too. So there you go. So you're going to essentially do one of these color patterns and/or gradients for more copies for extra credit number 2. All right, I hope this works out for you. You have time to play with this a little bit. It should be fun to some degree, and submit at least the first one so you get credit on the quiz, and potentially do two separate extra credits if you wish also.